She said, this is some kind of crazy-ass voodoo shit.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. So today I'm going to be talking with Dr. David Spiegel, and he is a psychiatrist. He's also a researcher and the Wilson Professor and Associate Chair of Psychiatry at Stanford University, the School of Medicine.
I got so tired of knowing what hypnosis can do for people and seeing it used so little.
Dr. Spiegel has over 45 years of experience seeing patients, conducting clinical research, and exploring how the mind can heal the body. And he completely redefines what you think you know about hypnosis.
It's actually a gain in control. You take control of what's going on in your mind and your brain and use it to help yourself.
Showing how focused attention and self-suggestion can help us build confidence, manage stress, sleep better, and even control pain. A lot of people are suffering.
The hypnosis is something that can help people see the same situation from a different point of view.
I feel like that's where the freedom is. He is insightful and intuitive, but he's really grounded. He also is the co-founder of Reverie, which is a self-hypnosis app that makes this method accessible to anyone. And yes, he even takes me through a short self-hypnosis exercise. Looks something like this.
The left hand seems to want to go up, is that right?
Yep.
Does that surprise you at all?
Nothing surprises me. Enjoy. This podcast is brought to you by Timeline. For me, taking care of my body, it goes way beyond just working out and eating clean. It's about so many other things. And it's also about supporting my energy and recovery at a deeper level, which is why I've added something new to my daily routine, MitoPure gummies from Timeline. I've taken Timeline in other forms, but the gummies, I have to say, are a little extra fun. They're the first ever longevity gummies powered by urolithin A. And what they do is pretty incredible. These gummies help improve energy, but at the cellular level. So instead of chasing the next energy drink or quick fix, you're actually building sustainable energy from the inside out. Since I started taking them, I just feel even better, stronger, more steady, and able to recover faster. So it's a small daily habit that's making a big difference. Plus, they're vegan, gluten-free, taste amazing. It is fun. It feels like almost like a treat, and are super easy to work into your routine. I keep them on my kitchen counter in my cabinet just so I never forget them. If you want to stay strong and energized now and as you age, you've got to try MitoPure gummies. My friends at Timeline are giving you 20% off just for being here. All you have to do is head to timeline.com/Gabby to get started. That's timeline.com/Gabby, TIMELINE.com/Gabby. Your cells will thank you. Dr. Spiegel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's just start. I thought it was fascinating that really this is a version of a family business.
Yeah, it's a kind of a genetic disease that I inherited. My parents were both psychiatrists and psychoanalysts, and they told me that I was free to become any kind of psychiatrist I wanted to be. And so here I am, but it was, the dinner table conversations were pretty interesting. And I got to watch my father filming work with hypnosis with some of his patients, and it was very interesting. And so I tried it out when I got to medical school and found it got even more interesting. So I kept doing it.
And he used it as a tool during World War II.
That's right. He was training as a psychoanalyst, and psychoanalysts were not big on hypnosis because Freud actually used it. His first book, Studies in Hysteria, was about his use of hypnosis. But he gave it up, and it's kind of fun reading, Gabby, when he said he was relieving a patient of her attacks of pain to their traumatic origins when suddenly she woke out of the hypnotic state and threw her arms around my neck. And he said, I was modest enough not to attribute this event to my own irresistible personal attractiveness. And so he discovered transference, that patients transfer feelings from their early life experiences onto the therapist. So he moved the chair behind the couch and stopped doing hypnosis. But my father learned from a refugee, Gustav von Aschaffenburg, a Viennese psychiatrist who was chased out of Austria by the Nazis and couldn't serve in the U.S. Army, but wanted to volunteer to help Army doctors learn to use hypnosis. And so he taught my father and a lot of other doctors how to do it, and my father found himself using it in very difficult circumstances to treat pain and combat stress reactions. But he decided when he got back to give it up, and was advised it would ruin his reputation if he was doing it. And he had one wonderful supervisor named Frieda from Reichman, who said, Herb, what are you feeling so precious about your reputation for? You barely started to get one. You're going to teach a course in hypnosis in my analytic institute, and I know you're going to teach it because I'm going to be there to take it. So he had one of the great supervisors doing that. And he found over the years, he kept doing analysis, that he seemed to be getting better results from people he used hypnosis with a few times to handle stress and insomnia and pain and other things than he was from 3 or 4 days a week on the couch in psychoanalysis. So his practice shifted more and more in the direction of hypnosis. And I caught the bug, and have used it with about 7,000 patients and subjects in my career. So I remain interested in it, as you noted.
Yeah. When people talk about hypnosis, there's this, you think of guys going up on the stage and doing all kinds of silly tricks. Maybe we could just once and for all kind of talk about that this is actually something different. And really what you're teaching is self-hypnosis.
That's exactly right, Gabby. Yeah, there's actually a message in it. People in general often very prejudiced about hypnosis. They either say it's dangerous or it's useless or it's both. And neither of which is true. But, there are guys that used to sell snake oil instead of real medications. And that didn't get us to decide not to use medication. And there's actually a message, Gabby. And you're an athlete. I'm sure you've had experiences where you, in athletics, first of all, got so absorbed in what you were doing that it wasn't like you were thinking, now I'll do this and that. You were just in it, right? And where you found that you could become someone you didn't think you could initially.
Yeah.
Is that right? I mean, that seems
Yeah.
like the story of your career. So when a guy on the stage in Las Vegas gets the football coach to dance like a ballerina and make a fool of himself, I don't like it. But you know what? There's a message. And the message is that in hypnosis, you can try out being different.
Yeah.
And, as a psychotherapist, I love that situation because you can be different in ways you thought you couldn't possibly do and discover that you can. And you just put aside your presuppositions, your limitations, and just see what it feels like to be different.
Yeah.
And that's a tremendous advantage. So you can use it for bad reasons, but you can also use it for good purposes and help people really become different.
Yeah. And it's funny that you correlate it to sport because in a way you say, okay, you're able to sort of focus so extremely and block other things out. And that third component is allowing yourself to sort of be released from your definition of who you are. And in sports, like I never really want to beat anyone in everyday life. I don't feel that way. But then in that moment, you're like, I can become this person with an energy that is sort of different than my walk around person. When people come to you, what are some of the reasons that they're there, and what are some of the differences you're seeing?
Well, as an example, Gabby, the Stanford, has a fabulous women's swimming team, and the swimmers are always in the Olympics, and they're really good. But the coach called me because he noticed that they were swimming faster in practice than they were in meets. Now, you look surprised, and you would, because you think, boy, you're geared up. When you're in competition, you're going for it. So I started talking to them, and what I noticed is that while they were practicing, they were mostly focusing on their relationships to their own body and how they could use them the best, and what kind of rhythm to get into, and how to coordinate, and what was the most important part of a better stroke. Whereas when they were in a race, they're worried about the woman in the lane on either side. And that is actually a distraction. Swimming, of course, is not a contact sport. It's not like water polo, where what that person does is going to matter to how you perform. It really doesn't matter. So if you're thinking about her, you're not thinking about the things that you think about when you're really trying to perform at your best, which means losing yourself in your connection with your body and helping it coordinate and function as best it can. And so I had them practice doing self-hypnosis every evening and practice what it felt like to just swim your own race. And their times went down in meets.
I have 3 daughters, and you're always talking to your family and even yourself about how, like, really at the end of the day, the only person I'm barely in charge of is myself. Like, the person that I can how I can get that person to respond correctly. And even in that moment, I could think about that as a life skill where maybe someone is coming at you with aggression or frustration or what have you. And if you just say, hey, I'm going to focus on my breathing and how I'd like to respond, it's almost a tool that, yes, you're using it for a performance analogy, but it's an opportunity in your everyday life to go back to focusing on the things you can be in charge of.
That's exactly right, Gabby. And I think of, people's problems with stress and anxiety and phobias as a kind of snowball effect.
Yeah.
So you mentioned somebody comes at you in a negative way and you've got to deal with it. So what do you notice? You notice your breathing gets more rapid and shallow, your muscles tense, you start to sweat. And then you notice that and you say, boy, this must be really bad. And so you get more anxious and then you tense up some more. So it just builds on itself. And if you can learn to do what you're talking about, which is turn into and deal with the one part of the stressor that you definitely can control, which is how your body reacts to it, you're already taking a step toward managing the stress itself. So the stressor doesn't have to go away immediately, but what does have to go away immediately is the way your body's reacting to it. So you just do some cyclic sighing, big inhale and then slow exhale through your mouth. And you'll find that your body's starting to feel better. And when it does, you're also saying, this person is bothering me, but not so much that I can't deal with it because I'm already starting to deal with it. So that, you're right, is a very helpful technique. And hypnosis, because hypnosis is all focused attention. It's like looking through a telephoto lens in a camera. What you see with great detail, but you're less aware of things at the periphery. And our brains are very good at that. Right now you're sitting on a chair. Hopefully you are not even aware of the parts of your body, your legs that are touching the chair until I mention it to you. Were you aware of that before I mentioned it?
No, because I'm focused on you.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad to hear that because if you weren't, we could just stop the interview now. And so that's a natural skill. Our brain is processing thousands of signals all the time, and it decides what matters, what to pay attention to, and what to ignore. And if you just don't let the world or that person who's being nasty to you control how your body is reacting to it, you're already a step ahead. And hypnosis is a state where you can focus on what matters to you, put outside of consciousness, that we call it dissociation, things that would ordinarily be in consciousness. And the third part is what we used to be called suggestibility, that you'll do anything anyone says, which is not true. But it's really cognitive flexibility. You can see things from a different point of view. And we've done research showing that in tests of what we call set shifting, where you have to catch on that the rules of the game have changed, people who are more hypnotizable are actually better at set shifting. You can just disconnect from the usual premise and try out something different. And those are the things you do in hypnosis. And those are the things I think that very often good athletes do. You see Tiger Woods did a self-hypnotic exercise every time before he took a swim. And there are a lot of professional basketball players. You'll see them look up, close their eyes, take a deep breath in and out before they shoot the foul shot. They're doing things to say, I'm under pressure here. But my job is to relate as well as I can to my own body and make it work at its best.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. One of the most obvious ones I've seen is I've seen a lot of tennis players on serve receive, they look down and then refocus. So they're just not doing the dead stare focus.
Right.
They all do it to break and refocus. It's really fascinating. That technique.
To let themselves be in charge of what their body's going to do, not their opponent. I don't want to focus too much on the opponent because what matters is the way my body reacts to it. And, there's a book called Zen and the Art of Archery. And this Irish sociologist studied Zen archers who are very good at what they do. And he said the biggest mistake that archers make is focusing on the target. And you think, well, hell, what are they trying to? He said, it doesn't matter. What matters is your relationship with the bow and arrow. And if that is correct, the arrow will go where you want it to go. Because that is the thing you control if you think about it. And that's true, I think, in a lot of athletic activities too, that you want to just keep your focus on how you and your body are relating to what needs to be done.
This podcast has been brought to you by Cornbread Hemp. So if you're like me, You're always looking for a natural way to support your body, especially after like a tough workout or even a long day. I think all of us have a lot of long days. And lately, I've been winding down with something called Cornbread Hemp's full spectrum CBD gummies. And they've become an occasional evening routine for me. Really easy to use, taste great. So whether I'm easing some sore muscles or just trying to relax, they help me settle in without feeling foggy. They're USDA organic, made with real fruit, watermelon, berry, and peach, and only the flower of the hemp plant. So no stems, seeds, or junk. So if you're looking for a clean, natural way to ease daily aches and even just unwind, give them a try. Everything is third-party lab tested, so you can get comfortable with that. You know exactly what you're getting. Right now, listeners of the Gabby Reece Show will get 30% off their first order and free shipping on orders of $75 or more. All you have to do is go to cornbreadhemp.com/Gabby and use the code Gabby at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com, cornbreadhemp.com/Gabby. You mentioned earlier about someone being hypnotizable. And before I read up and had this conversation, I would have taken great pride in thinking I was not hypnotizable for that thing that you talked about being, everything's suggestible. But after learning more, it's like, no, I think you'd actually want to be hypnotizable because that would mean you have that flexibility, that gear shift. So maybe you could just share about the difference between people who are hypnotizable or more hypnotizable, because they're sort of different,
They're different
groups.
groups, right? And we have, if people are curious, we have a self-hypnosis app, Reverie, where you can take the test and do in 5 minutes what I do with my patients when I'm working with them. And hypnotizability just involves this capacity to focus intently, to lose yourself in experience. Do you ever get so caught up in a good movie that you kind of forget you're watching a movie and enter the imagined world?
Oh, yeah.
So people who do that, it's been called believed in imagination. It can be a lot of fun. It can be enjoyable. And I suspect that in your athletics too, you really get immersed in what you're doing and you sit back and think about it later, but you're doing it. So people like that have a very good capacity to engage in and lose themselves in activity and therefore do them very well. We think of people as three rough categories. Highly hypnotizable people, we call them the poets. The story is the experience. That's what they have. That's what they do. People in the mid-range, we call the diplomats. They have the experience, but then they step back and think about it. And is it really like they said it was or what it was supposed to be? I don't know. And then you have the people at the lower end who are what we call the researchers. They're critical and judge everything all the time. And I had two patients on the same afternoon, one of whom was extremely hypnotizable, just out there, 10 on the scale. And she had migraine headaches, and I had her imagine a bag of ice on her head. And she said, "It's gone. I can't believe it. I've been suffering with this for months. It's gone. Thank you, doctor." And the next one was a guy who had injured his knee 7 years earlier in a work accident and was still having terrible pain. And he'd been to everybody, and they all said, "There's no surgery. We can do anything. I don't know what to do." And he was frustrated by that. He was a zero. He just couldn't respond to any of the hypnotic suggestions at all. Oh, and the thing that tipped me off was I always ask, are you right or left-handed? And he said, "Well, I'm right-handed, but I always have to train my left hand to do everything exactly equal to what my right hand can do." So this guy worries about everything, including equality for his left and his right hand. He couldn't tell me what hand to do unless he had. I said, I think this is your problem with your knee too. That I don't know how badly your knee was obviously injured, but it's 7 years later. You're frustrated that it isn't all gone, but I suspect you're kind of making a mountain out of a molehill and you still have some discomfort. And he said, "Doc, you're the first doctor in all these years that has said that to me, and I think you're right." So for him, it was more that he just couldn't stop worrying about the slight imperfection that he still lived with. So it struck me as a contrast between the two personality types of people who are high versus low in hypnotizability.
We always have these opportunities to change. I certainly have changed. I think parenting has been one of the sort of latest things. My youngest daughter is in college. But as far as the opportunity for greatest change, I feel like relationships with a partner or a friend or certainly children, it's a joke of like forced change,
Yeah.
And I wonder, can people, if you have somebody who sort of functions a certain way, maybe they're hypervigilant, they had a rough childhood, would they have the opportunity to change and become more hypnotizable, which would be maybe less afraid, less analytical, willing to let go a little bit?
Well, I would say I don't work that way, and here's why. Hypnotizability, it turns out, is an extremely stable trait.
Oh,
There's a psychologist he used to be at Stanford, Phil Zimbardo. He died recently. He did the famous prison experiment where, he had the students, half were guards and half were prisoners, and it got really ugly so fast that they had to stop the experiment. He said, it
Yeah.
isn't rotten apples, it's rotten barrels. That's the problem. But so Phil got the records of a bunch of students who had been in his Psych 1 class and had their hypnotizability measured. And he blindly retested them 25 years later. And the test-retest correlation was 0.7. Now,
Wow.
that's
Wow.
as stable as IQ is over a 25-year interval. It just doesn't change much. The only time in life when hypnotizability changes is between childhood and adulthood. Most 8-year-olds are in trances most of the time. You call them in for dinner, they don't hear you. They're absorbed. Work and play are all the same thing. But as we acquire what has been called formal operations in adolescence, where you start to value reason more and understanding things more and experience less, some of us lose that hypnotizability, some don't. And there are both genetic correlates, certain people who have a certain polymorphism of a gene for dopamine metabolism tend to be more hypnotizable, and we can measure that, but also life experience. So you mentioned people having difficult life experiences. It turns out that there's a good and a bad pathway. The good pathway is imaginative involvements. If your parents read you stories every night and you were encouraged to use your imagination, you may turn out to remain more hypnotizable. Sadly, it's also mistreatment, physical and sexual abuse, because they just, I had a patient who said, when my father was abusing me, I just went to a mountain meadow full of wildflowers.
Yeah.
And they just can't stand being aware and who they are at that time, so they learn to be something else. And so some people retain that ability to detach themselves from unpleasant realities. So my approach in general is to measure hypnotizability always before I start, so that it makes it clear, Gabby, that if somebody isn't going into a hypnotic state, it isn't because they're resisting, which people used to be told. It's because they just don't have that particular ability. And if they do, it's not that they're just trying to please, it's what their experience is. So it's better to know what the level is and work with them at that level. So for people who are highly hypnotizable, yes, you can just teach them to do it and they'll do it. I had a woman who, she said, I'm a 10-year meditator, twice a day for 10 years. I love meditation, but I still have migraine headaches. It's killing me. And so she was very hypnotizable, and I taught her to imagine the ice on her head, cool that sense of heat in your head that goes along with the migraine. She called me back. She said, it's gone. Thank you. And thank you for freeing me to use my intentionality. Because with meditation, you're supposed to just kind of experience it and just let the feelings flow through you. And that can be a very useful exercise sometimes. But hypnosis is not about being, it's about doing.
Yeah.
It's about using this altered mental state to do something, to concentrate better, to perform better, to sleep better, to control pain, to control stress, to stop smoking. Those are the things that hypnosis can help you do. And there are techniques that we have on our app now, because Gabby, I got so tired of knowing from my experience and from my research what hypnosis can do for people, and seeing it used so little. So about 4 years ago, Ariel Poehler, who's a Stanford Business School grad, MIT grad, came up to me after a talk and said, hey, Amazon's making it pretty easy to record, to make an app. You want to try it? So I said, sure. He said, well, I'll build it for you. So we got together, we did a smoking app, and we found that 1 out of 4 people stopped smoking just like that, using it once. And the rest cut down substantially on how much they were smoking. And we had one woman who said, I didn't like this when I tried it. And I smoked for 25 years and I didn't even want to stop. But I lit up a cigarette, I looked at it and said, who needs this? I put it out and I haven't smoked a cigarette since. And my friends can't believe it. I can't believe it. She said, this is some kind of crazy ass voodoo shit. And I mean that in a good way, she said. So, when it happens for a highly hypnotizable person, it just happens and it's dramatic. For less hypnotizable people, you got to work at it a little more, but that's okay. So you try and work with them at their level of responsiveness and in the style that they find appealing.
Yeah.
So less hypnotizable people want a more logical step-by-step process, and the highs just go there.
And if someone's looking for it, it's called Reverie, Reveri, and it's available to everybody. It made me think if you weren't highly hypnotizable, but you worked at it and you got 100% of your capacity, that there would be like a benefit to even the awareness, the recognition. What's the nuance or the difference? Because sometimes when I hear it, it makes me also think about flow.
Mm-hmm. That's
When
right.
you go into flow state, maybe not that third component as much where you go, "Hey, I'm willing to explore being something different than I am," but I was wondering if there was any kind of connection.
I think there is. I knew Csikszentmihalyi, and I think people, to the extent that they're highly hypnotizable, tend to experience what they're doing as a flow state. He called it an
Mm,
autotelic experience, where you just feel good doing it. It doesn't matter what happens, you just feel good doing it. And hypnosis can be like that. You're just so immersed in what you're doing that you're not very concerned about how well it's going or how you're doing it. You're just doing it.
yeah.
And so there is a flow-like quality to real hypnotic experience. That's true. You do it just because it feels good to do it. It's not a means to an end. It's just an experience you have and you like.
If someone, let's say they come and see you, and I know that the session's probably an hour or so, but what are some of the tools, like, to give people a sense of it? If, let's say, it's just, they don't have anything severe like a PTSD or, maybe a young sexual trauma, but just like anxiety and worry, and I think where more people are, that impacts their sleep and some other things. How do you teach them? Because again, the idea that really you're just teaching them to hypnotize themselves.
That's right. All hypnosis is ultimately really self-hypnosis. So I would teach someone who just wants to learn to deal with stressors to first start out, get as comfortable as you can. On one, you do one thing, you look up. Two things, slowly close your eyes and take a deep breath. Three, do three things, breath out, eyes relax, let your body float. And then let one hand or the other float up in the air like a balloon. Just imagine
Mhm.
that you're floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space. That's good. Give it a try. That's fine.
You know, it's funny, I wasn't even gonna do it, and I jumped in, and then all of a sudden I just felt my hand going up, like, instantly.
I love it. That's good. So good. So let your hand float. And what you're learning is a new relationship with your body. And you'll find if you do this, if I ask you to pull your hand back down, uh, it will float right back up to the upright position. You'll find something pleasant and amusing about this sensation. After that, when I ask you to touch your elbow with your other hand, your usual sensation and control will return. So let your left hand float up in the air. You can bend it at the elbow and feel a sense of lightness and buoyancy. And notice how quickly and easily you can use your stored memories and your imagination to help yourself and your body feel better. Picture yourself being somewhere you just feel good, where you like to be. Where are you right now?
I'm at the bottom of my swimming pool.
There you go. All right. Nice deep breath in and then slow exhale through your mouth. And notice how quickly and easily you can use your stored memories and your imagination to help yourself and your body feel better. Now we'll come out of the formal state of hypnosis by counting backwards from 3 to 1, but leave your hand up in the air. 3, get ready. 2, with your eyelids closed. Roll up your eyes. 1, let your eyes open. 3, 2, 1. Good. How's your body feeling right now?
It's just the looseness, I'm a person who's always a little not on guard, but kind of activated.
Right.
When I can just get soft, it's really good.
That's good. And you made that shift. Well, take your right hand now and pull your left hand down. Let your left hand go up again. Pull it down and let go. Let's see what happens. Pull your left hand down. That's good. And how does your left hand feel right now?
It just feels lighter. My right hand feels a lot more like wood compared
More
to
like
my
wood.
left.
All right. So let it
Yeah.
float up in the air. That's good. And by way of comparison, raise your right hand.
Yeah, that takes effort.
That takes effort. So the left hand seems to want to go up. Is that right?
Yep.
Does that surprise you at all?
Nothing surprises me.
Well, notice how you're rebuilding your relationship to your body, and you're recognizing that with just a few moments of self-hypnotic thought, you can change the way your left hand feels compared to your right. So it's part of exploring your brain's complex relationship to your body. Now, take your right hand now. You feel a difference in control over one hand going up compared to the other?
Yeah, the right was a lot more effort.
More effort. So, but did you?
It feels wooden versus the left is like, okay,
Yeah, right. Now take your right hand, touch your left elbow, and then let go. Are you aware of a difference in sensation and control now in your left hand and arm compared to a moment before?
Not quite as much.
Not as much. So there's less difference between the two.
Yeah.
So notice how this is a domain of control over different parts of your body that you may not have thought that you had, but you do. You have that ability. So the left hand is coming back to be more like the right now. Is the control? Raise them both now. Put them down. Difference in sensation and control now. Is it more equal between the two hands, left and right?
It's more equal, but the left has a levity, like an airiness that the right, but it's less than in the beginning.
Yeah, we move from gravity to levity. That's right. That's good. So touch your left elbow again with your right hand. Now shake both hands and tell me when the control becomes the same.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So before you had less control, now it's the same. Did I do or say anything that would indicate there'd be a change in sensation or control in your left hand and arm?
No.
Did I say anything to you about your elbow or touching your elbow?
Well, at the end, yeah.
But not during the exercise?
Not at all.
Okay. So, folks, podcast listeners, we have witnesses here. I actually said to you, Gabby, when you touch your left elbow with your right hand, your usual sensation and control will return. And I did ask you to do that twice, actually, and you did it twice.
Yeah. No, I was saying at the end, you asked me to touch the elbow, but not with the left arm.
But when it was up there, I also said that when I touch your left elbow, your usual sensation and control will return.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, well, you did hear it. You just didn't remember hearing it. And that's one of the interesting things about hypnosis is that you can be responding to things that you're not fully conscious of, and that's fine. That's good.
Oh, that's so fascinating. This podcast is brought to you by Superpower. I've been thinking a lot about how so many people walk around exhausted and they just accept it. You can even sleep at 8 hours or drink all the water, do all the right things, and still feel foggy and drained. And the answers we usually get don't actually explain anything. That's why I love what Superpower is doing. It's preventative care that's actually personalized. With one simple lab test, they look at over 100 biomarkers, things like your hormones, your metabolism, vitamins, minerals, all the things that actually affect your energy. And instead of just handing you the results, which can be overwhelming, they create a plan for you. The supplements that you'll need, what to adjust, how to get your levels back where they should be. This used to cost over $500 just a minute ago, and now it's $199. And they track your progress over time so you can literally see your health changing. It's the future of proactive care. I'm personally really excited about it. So if you're tired of being tired, now's the time. Head to superpower.com and use the code TAKE20 for $20 off your membership. That's superpower.com, superpower.com. And don't forget to use the code TAKE20, TAKE20. And if they ask where you heard about them, mention the podcast. And remember, head to superpower.com. Be proactive about your health. You've seen over 7,000 patients, but with all the studies and everything, you've seen way more patients. What's still about this practice surprises you?
Every day I love still working with patients face to face, and just seeing how quickly and thoroughly people can change their experience of themselves. I had a woman who had been sexually abused as a early young teenager and was by a landlord, and the family was afraid to do anything about it. And she got more and more despairing as she'd walk down the street and men would make comments about her. She said, "My body isn't my own." She left that country and came here and was working, but was chronically depressed. And I got her hypnotized. She was very hypnotizable. And I said, "I want you to pretend you're your own mother. And I want you to look at yourself as a 12-year-old just after you had been assaulted." And she starts to cry. And I said, "I want you to answer one question for me. Was this her fault?" And she said,
Yeah.
"No, I'm stroking her hair. I'm stroking her hair." And
Yeah.
so we ended that session. She was crying, but something seemed different. And she called me a week later and said, "Dr. Spiegel, my psychiatrist wants to know what you did to me because I'm not depressed anymore. And my friends don't recognize me." And so she was able, unfortunately, many abuse survivors blame themselves for events they didn't control because you'd rather be empty than helpless. And she was able to change her perspective after all these years on that and who she was. And it changed the way she felt about herself. And so there are times when you can do that in a hurry. You can just get people to use this ability to try out being different and to really become different.
I really appreciated you discussing that you actually get people, to your point of what you just talked about, whether it's someone passing or maybe someone has an accident and another person can't help them, that even in this practice, getting them to look at the hard or negative stuff about it. I think we need to do that in our life, like face the worst part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's where the freedom is.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I realize more and more, like, you walk around, I tell my husband this all the time, and a lot of people are suffering.
You're right. And, there's suffering that goes with life. We all have to accept things that are painful and difficult. But at the same time, denying it sometimes makes it worse because you don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And that means you don't feel you have any control over it. I treated a woman who had to fight off an assailant who wanted to drag her up to her apartment. And she was she fought so hard, she suffered a basilar skull fracture. And she came to see me to see if hypnosis could help her identify the face of the assailant. And it was getting pretty dark and she couldn't see much. But she said, looking at this, and I told her, your body is safe and comfortable. No harm is going to come to you, but just picture what was going on. And she said, on the one hand, I think if he gets me into my apartment, he's not just going to rape me, he's going to kill me.
Mm.
So I think, oh, good, you're making her feel that it was even worse than it actually was, and it was bad enough. But on the other hand, I said, so tell me, what did you do to protect yourself? And she said, he's surprised that I'm fighting him this hard. He didn't think I would. So she started out feeling guilty that she'd gotten herself hurt. And she wound up feeling that she'd saved her life,
Yeah.
and that changed her perspective about it. And hypnosis is something that can help people do that, can help them see the same situation from a different point of view. And often there's a saying that cover up's worse than the crime. The effort to pretend this isn't me, it didn't happen, it's often more painful than whatever bad thing actually happened. Because you
Yeah.
feel a sense of shame, you feel embarrassed if people knew. And so having to cover it up, and that's one of the tragic things about what happens to people who've been traumatized. They feel humiliated. That's what a lot of combat vets feel. I shouldn't be this upset by this, and they've gone through things that any normal human being would be horrified by, but they somehow feel that they shouldn't take it that hard and they shouldn't feel it that way. And helping people to work that through, face the emotions, and also acknowledge what you did to try to survive a situation like that can be very helpful.
Yeah. I think that is so beautifully articulated and such an important message because I feel that that's what a lot of us are all navigating, every day, big and small. People can use hypnosis, sleep, pain, trauma, performance, the sexy parts. And now with technology, I'm just curious, how do you think it's impacting? Like, have you seen in your practice uh, people getting kind of worked over by technology?
I think there's two kinds of technology that are working people over, and one is smartphones and social media and things that are
Yeah,
actually talking people into thinking about or doing things that they really shouldn't do. So
yeah,
people feeling suicidal who are being told, well, here's a good way to do it, rather than you must be desperate. It's horrible. It's just disgraceful. And so, if you can try being different in a bad way, if you can in a good way. And so, the idea that that social media sometimes make acceptable or plausible things that people just shouldn't do, or where they pick on people's sense of vulnerability and convince them that they're not acceptable and they'll never be pretty enough to attract somebody or something like that, is just playing to their weakness, playing on their weakness. And those are terrible things. So if you have an opportunity to get a picture of the situation independent of the sometimes malevolent influences that are grabbing your attention by making you scared or fearful or doubting yourself, that's one way it can help, because you control that story, the one that's going on in your head. Um, and the other kind of technology that sometimes does us harm is drugs, medication, too much. And I'm a doctor. I use drugs all the time with patients, but um, you know, 118,000 Americans died of drug overdoses from opioids last year. So we need to be able to find ways to control real problems we have in situations where we're in control. And one of the biggest and most incorrect fears about hypnosis is that it's a loss of control. It isn't. It's actually a gain in control. You take control of what's going on in your mind and your brain and use it to help yourself. And that's what hypnosis is about.
I know you've been immersed in this conversation basically your whole life, but I'm just curious, as a working, busy person, how you've actually used it in your own life as a tool.
Sure. Well, I've used it for problems like getting to sleep. I remember I flew to London once and I didn't get much sleep on the flight, and I had a terrible headache, and I had to ride on one of these bouncing double-decker buses into London, and it's getting worse and worse. And I tried to get some aspirin out of one of those vending machines, and I lost the shilling and didn't get the aspirin. And then I thought, you idiot, this is what you do. This is your day job. So I did some self-hypnosis, and in a few minutes, the headache was gone. And look who was surprised, me. I could do that. Or I'll tell you another minor athletic example. I was trying to water ski, and I kept doing face plants in the water. It was just terrible. And I remembered that the secret to basic water skiing is arms straight, knees bent. But because your knees can then absorb the shocks of the up and down, but you're not trying to control with the smaller muscles of your arm. And I just hypnotized myself and said, arms straight, knees bent, arms straight, knees bent, because I've been doing the opposite. And sure enough, I stayed up. It was just, I kind of reached a new agreement with my body about what it was going to do, even though I was scared I was going to hit the water again. So it can help you just kind of reprogram how your body's reacting, and it works.
What I like is the idea of like it can be grabbing a hold of something in performance physically in the moment or being used to switch that perspective on a narrative that we've created that is causing us a lot of, whatever it is, trauma, stress, anxiety. Do you give it to people as a tool, or is it like, hey, once a day, if someone's really trying to unpeel a deep onion, is it an everyday practice? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it is helpful, particularly at first, just learning about it and getting to use it. It's a good idea at least once a day, or for people with
Mm.
chronic pain, for example, I'll tell them every 1 to 2 hours, anytime you start to feel the pain again, don't fight it, admit it, sit down or lie down, go into the state of self-hypnosis. And with Reverie, you can hear my mellifluous voice anytime you want, and if you wake up at 3 in the morning, there I am, and I used to worry that Reverie wasn't as good as what I do in my office. And then I thought, if you wake up at 3 in the morning, you probably don't want me in your bedroom telling you what to do, but you've got me on the app, and so, and I've had patients. I was talking with a woman at a dinner party last night who had a stroke and was having a lot of anxiety and trouble sleeping. And she said, every night you're there with me, and it gets me to sleep. Thank you very much. And so
Yeah.
the nice thing about hypnosis is you can use it when you need it. But I think it's good at first to do regular practice several times a day, so you get used to what it feels like to do it, and you begin to build your own confidence in your ability to use it.
I really, am excited. I actually am gonna incorporate, because the idea of meditating for me, sometimes I have a breathing practice, and there's sort of like I focus on the breath more, so that's easier. But I'm gonna get the Reverie, app and mess around with this, because I think it's a very interesting tool that you could use also on the spot.
Yes, absolutely. That's the nice thing about it. It happens very quickly, and unlike drugs, when you're done with it, you're done with it. It's whereas the
Yeah.
drug's still having an effect. So absolutely, you can do that. And we have the first week is free for anyone who wants to try using Reverie, and see what it feels like. See if you
Yeah.
feel you're getting the benefit. But I'm glad you're intrigued enough to give
Oh,
it a try.
absolutely, and in wrapping up, the part too that we forget, because I always think we've gotten disconnected from our biology. Like, somehow people, if we knew more about our biology, we'd also, I think it'd be easier to navigate some of our impulses, because 'cause we'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I know where this is coming from." And one of them was talking about shifting gears. And you say, "Hey, this is really like, it's a part of being an evolutionary process of, like, being able to shift gears, but that you can do that same thing in this positive way."
Yes, that's exactly right. Look, if you think about it, how have we survived over millennia, um, to despoil the planet when we're not very big, we're not very strong, we don't run very fast? There are animals that do what we do, a lot better than we do. And part of it is our ability to control and manage our perception and our reaction to what's going on in the environment. And also because we're social creatures, so it isn't one of us alone, but we form connections. So the way our brains process and reprocess signals is a real adaptive advantage that humans have with these big brains that we've inherited. And so your ability to modulate your reaction helps you to form and maintain social networks. Human infants are the most helpless of any mammal. They
Yeah.
just, they can't make it on their own. So they and their parents have to form social bonds very quickly. Otherwise, the child won't survive. So our ability to form and maintain social relationships involves our ability to perceive and modulate our reactions to other people and how we respond to them. And so all of those are real adaptive advantages. And it's a good idea to try out using this to modulate your reaction to things that are going on, and to manage your pain and stress and anger and happiness and joy, and use them to your advantage.
This podcast is brought to you by Maui Nui Venison. I love this brand. I've been using it for years and years. It was first given to me as a gift, and then we became customers. And I think, like a lot of you, I'm always looking for ways to make things like lunch cleaner and easier, but you don't want to lose flavor. I mean, I think that's the balance, right? Like, how is it good for me, but I enjoy it and love it? And I found my go-to, well, one of my go-tos, Maui Nui's Always Summer Sausage. It's not your typical deli meat. So it's made from wild harvested axis deer from Maui. It's lean, clean protein with no fillers, no sugar, no junk. I love this because in my day we called it cold cuts, but the idea of this being something that's healthy, I'm just really excited about. It's lightly seasoned and naturally smoked. It's got this subtle savory flavor that's somehow both rich, but it's really refreshing. Each serving has 20 grams of protein and only 110 calories. So it fuels you without slowing you down. I'll slice it for a sandwich, add it to eggs, or eat it straight from the fridge if I'm really in a hurry. And I always feel energized, never heavy. And here's the best part. Every bite supports sustainable wildlife management and a healthier planet. It's protein with a purpose and it tastes incredible. So if you're interested, you can get your Always Summer Sausage by going to MauiNuiVenison.com/Gabby. Again, that's MauiNuiVenison.com/Gabby. Before it sells out, that's MauiNuiVenison.com/Gabby. And of course, feel free if they ask, hey, where'd you hear from us? Tell them you heard from the show. Doc, do you ever get turned sideways? Anything ever really throw you off?
Throw me off.
Yeah, like you're married, right?
Yeah, last time I checked, yes.
You've been married a long time.
Almost 50 years, yes.
I'm always curious because I think people think, oh, because somebody knows that they never get caught just being a human being. And I was just wondering if the stress of work or family, oh, like, the holidays are coming up, like whatever. Do you ever just kind of go, oh, I got caught?
I got caught. Yeah. Well, I've been reacting to things. I recently lost a very close colleague and friend, and I still find it hard to wrap my head around what happened to him. And and I just try to face it and see it for what it is and live with what the aftermath is. And it's very hard, but my capacity to look at it and try and think it through a bit is helpful to me. You're sort of modulating the impact, even though the impact is there.
Yeah. I think that's the most important point is it's not that you're not going to suffer, but you're going to have the ability to at least look at it, continue to work through it so that you don't pack it down or it overwhelms you in 2 more years or comes out as an ailment or something.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Gabby, that it
Yeah.
isn't going to go away, but
No.
you can sort of deal with it in manageable doses and figure out what you can do about it. Often in grieving someone you've lost, it's a two-edged sword. Part of what hurts so much is all the good things that person gave to you and contributed to
Yeah.
your life and how you helped them. And that it's both painful in losing someone, but it's also a comfort that the fact that they're gone doesn't mean that all that other good stuff isn't true. So
Yeah.
you just have to kind of try to maintain a balance, which is what I try to do.
This is really an incredible tool for young people. Is there an age that you think a kid could kind of start to even get the concept?
Sure. I think, as I said, the peak period in human life is the latency years in childhood. So actually, by the time kids are 9 or 10, they can focus very intently. And it's a good thing to learn to practice, to do performance. My grandkids do musical performances of all kinds and they love it. And just watching them and helping them get into these states of intense focus where they're focusing on the music they're producing or the singing and not, what are their friends going to say and is the teacher going to approve it or not, but just to lose themselves in the actual engagement with it. The best way to improve behavior is intermittent positive reinforcement. And so if you can find it enjoyable, even if you make a mistake, even if little Susie did it better, that's the internal reward. So yeah, kids from mid-childhood on are good candidates for learning techniques like this.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Spiegel, I really appreciate your time. And to remind people, the app is Reverie. And is there any other place you want to direct them towards so they can find you?
Reverie is the most accessible thing because it's out there on the web. Other than that, I've published a lot, hundreds of articles about hypnosis, so you can look up hypnosis for pain. We've used it with cancer patients to help them look better with their cancer, and we've helped people stop smoking and do other things. So there are lots of research studies that we've done that also document and have the effectiveness of hypnosis.
Thank you, Dr. Spiegel. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome, Gabby.
This podcast has been brought to you by Laird Superfood. Laird Superfood was started in my kitchen by my husband, Laird, almost 10 years ago. And this is a brand that's very easy for me to talk about. I'm involved with it every day. And just to share with you some of the thoughts and feelings behind our guardrails, it always starts first with ingredients. So of course we wouldn't use artificial ingredients, but one of our guardrails is not to use natural flavors as well, because as you go, you sort of realize natural flavors, there's some pretty loosey-goosey rules on that. So, best in class ingredients, but we want you to enjoy the experience. We know it doesn't matter how good something is for you. If you're not going to enjoy it, especially things like your coffees and creamers and a ritual that we do every day, it doesn't really matter. And we also try to really consider cost and accessibility. So that just gives you a sense of where we're coming from. And we have so many incredible SKUs and products that can support you throughout your day. So whether, again, it's coffee or creamers, we've got some incredible coffee, high altitude, low acidic, organic Peruvian coffee, really, really good. We have creamers that are filled with adaptogens. And for the moment, all of our creamers are dairy-free. And you have so many healthy ingredients inside them, but we've got turmeric and mocha, however you like it. And one of my favorite categories are instant products. So a lot of times I think people don't think that you can have these high-level products that are instant where you just add hot water. You can even ice them down if you prefer. We have instant latte, instant mocha. We have an instant maca latte. We have an instant vanilla latte, chai, and matcha for my non-coffee drinkers. And of course, we have our Laird Superfood greens. Easy to mix in water, great soluble ingredients, no fillers. So depending on what you're looking for, bars, coffees, creamers, greens, hydrate products with something called Aquamin in it, Laird Superfood has you covered. And if you have not tried our products, head to lairdsuperfood.com. That's LAIRDSUPERFOOD.com and go ahead and use the code GABBY20, GABBY20 for 20% off your entire order at lairdsuperfood.com.